Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train in 1951. Now this is a film, another Hitchcock film, and I've been doing quite a few Hitchcocks recently, and yeah, it's just I'm rewatching some of his films again, and any film I see now of Hitchcock, rewatch or new watch, I'll be reviewing on this channel, and just adding them to a playlist. And yeah, Strangers on a Train, 1951. Stars Farley, Granger, Robert Walker, and actually one of the characters is played by Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, Pat Hitchcock. But yes, this is one that usually is put in the top 10, top 15. Like The Lady Vanishes. It's one of his American ones from the 50s, which I've seen quite a few Hitchcocks now, and I can safely say really that the 50s was his strongest decade by far. That was really the decade, where he kind of just got everything right, with a certain amount of, certain number of films. I've not seen any films that are, disappointing, from him from the 50s, and there's a lot of underrated ones as well. Then, but of course you've got the big three Hitchcocks as well, from the 50s: Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest. But this is, it's one of the first. It's the first kind of 50s Hitchcock really that was kind of, it's talked about quite a lot, and yeah, it's Strangers on a Train. It really is. I've seen it 3 times now. This is my 3rd viewing, and the first time I saw it was probably, I think, yeah, it's beginning of 2017, and I was just completely drawn in straight away. Once again, it's like a tractor beam, it just draws you in, Hitchcock, and the stunning, kind of intro sequence where. You'd see the 2 shoes, the feet of the characters. You see them walking, and it kind of says things. It kind of sets things up and stuff before you've even seen the characters, and it does kind of, it plays with the kind of the cross, of cinematics and stuff, and just the way that the camera kind of moves and stuff, and they brush feet, and that's kind of sets the chain of events for the rest of the film. When they get on the train, and it starts off kind of an innocent conversation, very relatable though. It's kind of like you meet someone on the train. Once again, a train. Trains are very, very important for Hitchcock films. A lot of them, but yes, they kind of meet on the train. And it seems innocent at first, but it's something that progresses. Very, very quite quickly. The conversations they have. Farley Granger's Guy Haynes, who's basically this kind of quite big tennis player, and then you've got Bruno, who's played by Robert Walker, and he's kind of just this. He's the main villain of the film, and it's slowly, you think there's something off, at first, but quite quickly it escalates, and you can quite clearly see that he's completely mental. No, it just the way the conversation progresses on that train. Starting off from quite an innocent, couple of exchanges to this big thing that kind of just sets up the rest of the film and the drive. And basically, Robert Walker's character, Bruno, basically says, he's been researching, Guy Haynes, this character, the tennis player, in the papers and stuff, and he knows that he's got a problem with his trying to divorce someone and stuff. And yeah, he proposes as well. He's not happy with his dad and stuff. He proposes they swap murders basically, and carry them out so that there's no real, they can't be traced as such. But more things are afoot. More things were planned out there. You kind of soon realise as well. But yes, you think at first you could think he's joking, but it's quite clear soon after that he's not. And things unfold, in the first 40 minutes. Shocking stuff, really, really shocking stuff. And after that, it goes different ways, and you've got many, many twists and turns, and just, once I think certain things happen. Farley Granger's character just gets, he's getting stalked by the villain of the film. Bruno, and just so many scenes where he just appears, the villain, and even times where he's kind of looking on from a distance, and it's just so effective, so tense, and just very atmospheric, and there's a great sense, early on, a lot of use of foreshadowing as well, But yes, it really just it's quite a disturbing film at times, actually. But it's kind of funny at times. At the same time, once again, Hitchcock does this quite a lot. Balances comedy out with actual, thriller aspects and stuff. And it's at times this is kind of horror elements. It really is disturbing. But it is, the villain especially. Very complex character. I actually think not only is this one of the best Hitchcock villains, but one of the best villains in cinema. Actually, I do think that. I just think the performance and the writing and just the way he's portrayed, through the cinematography, the framing and stuff, the way as well, that he kind of just intrudes on things, and he kind of, when Hitchcock kind of the camera it doesn't move sometimes, and then Robert Walker will come into frame and he'll just go straight, into the camera as if he's kind of, just kind of coming right at the screen and stuff, to give him this sense of, the strength and everything, and the kind of, the uneasy feel. It gives an uneasy feel, whenever he's on screen, and then, when he's at a distance as well, even you just see his outline, his figure, and it's really, really creepy and atmospheric. So effective, and the performance is just stunning, really. Just the range of emotions, and the fact that you kind of, at least I did, I felt really, very sorry for him, the villain, even though of course he's kind of, definitely against the protagonist throughout most of the film, and it's kind of, you get annoyed of course at times, thinking, oh, just leave the protagonist alone, because Farley Granger, he's very, very innocent. He's in Rope as well. He kind of just plays in both of them films, really, especially in this, kind of an innocent character, someone that you can relate to and stuff, but you don't want anything to happen to, and despite even despite that, the fact that you don't want anything to happen to this protagonist, and the villain is definitely always out, trying to mess things up for him and stuff. I still felt really sympathetic for the actual villain, and that's just really, really, really effective writing, due to really effective writing, performances, and just Hitchcock's direction. It's just stunning, and the script as well is stunning, and just it's just the way that the quirks and the charms of this villain. It just adds it. It makes a very complex and layered villain. Someone that very, very flawed, but you feel many different things for. And it can shift just between, in between a couple of minutes. You could be quite entertained and amused by this character, because of his eccentric behaviour, and then you can be like really annoyed at him and stuff, or shocked. It's just brilliant. The villain is just stunning. As well, the supporting cast are great. Farley Granger's kind of love interest, she's great in this film. Pat Hitchcock is really good. She's really memorable. And some funny moments with her as well. I wish she was in more films, actually. She's really good, actually. I believe she's in a couple of other Hitchcocks. She appears, but I think this was her biggest role. I'm not too sure exactly on that. I believe she's in Psycho as well, actually. But yeah, this is her biggest role, I would say, of what I've seen and heard. But yeah, she was great. Very charming character, very funny, and again, very innocent. Kind of, it's just really great. The characters and the side characters and the villain and the protagonist. It's all just so flawless, really. And again, this score is wonderful, really. In this film, the way it's used is just really quite perfect. And yeah, you've got in between the different three main acts of the film, you've got many great sequences. Tunnel of Love in the first act. You've got kind of, you could say there's some other ones in the middle, and then at the end you've got the tennis sequences. And then you've got the final one, the fun fair again, the amusement park, and all these sequences are so great on their own, but they're always part of this massive film, this narrative, kind of like movements, you could say. And yeah, it's just such an effective film, and the tennis, we'll talk about the tennis scenes are absolutely stunning in this film, and that's really where some of the best editing of the film is really within the tennis scenes. It's like you're actually watching like a really intense Wimbledon game, and it's just the way it's edited and put together, and also the stakes. At the point when he goes into this game, Farley Granger's character, it's just, it really heightens everything, and the fact that he's trying to quickly finish this game before, which I won't kind of ruin, but before something else happens, which is also shown, it's juxtaposed brilliantly. Hitchcock really brilliantly contrasts this with what Bruno's doing as well at the same time. It's kind of like a race against time, you could say. And it's so tense, and it's just perfectly used, the tennis, the fact that he's a tennis player and he has to play this game and finish it, to kind of heighten the tension and stuff and make that final act so effective, so tense and stuff. And then you've got one of the best and most wowing sequences, in a Hitchcock film, full stop. Actually, the kind of merry-go-round at the end is just really great, and that has a balance of comedy as well in there, and and tension and shocking stuff and stuff. And it just, the final bit is very touching as well, and you kind of, again, you have mixed emotions, it's because the writing is great, and the performances are great. But yes, I just absolutely love this film. I loved it the first time, and it's just gotten better every time, really. Once again, I say that a lot, but that's just how films work for me, really, when they're great. Especially from directors like Hitchcock, and there's loads of directors, who just, they're great, the first time you see them, and then all the little details, basically. Malick as well, you pick up on again, even more and more on rewatches. And Strangers on a Train, for me, it's a masterpiece for sure. I loved all the characters, or felt things for every character. One of the most compelling villains I've seen, actually, among them, which for sure be in my top 100 villains, actually, of all time, of what I've seen. Protagonist, Farley Granger, really like the actor, I really want to see more of his films, actually, because, he's just such an enjoyable actor, and, he usually just plays innocent people, and, it's really enjoyable. Robert Walker is just fantastic in this film. Pat Hitchcock, as well, and just all the supporting characters and cast, really great. And you've just got so many scenes that are just, so tense and gripping that it's just unbelievable, really. But what, it's Hitchcock, what can you say? And I really believe as well the 50s was his decade, really. The amount, it's hard to kind of, you can't really imagine, really, how much skill went into, the fact that, for me, actually, he's made, of the films I've seen, maybe like six great / masterpiece films within one decade. It's really quite extraordinary, and as well, considering how good the 50s were as well, not just for American cinema and stuff, but Japanese cinema, Asian cinema in general, and just all types of cinema, world cinema. 50s really, it could be objectively the best decade for cinema, and Hitchcock, I think, actually was the best director of the 50s, taking everything into account. And this is just one of his many masterpieces for me, for sure, definitely a masterpiece, and I think it just squeezes into my 100% plus tier 2, and it's just slightly in there, and I've kind of adjusted that, because it was maybe just slightly below after I saw it, and I thought, what, I'll let it in there, because it really does do something special, and it's grown me once again. As I say, just before I rewatched it, sorry, that was that I just, it maybe wasn't quite there, but really after the rewatch, it's kind of confirmed, it's just in there, it's an absolute masterpiece for me, a flawless film. All the different sequences within the film, are just so, mind blowing. But it's just a constant build of tension throughout this narrative. And there's a lot of dramatic irony as well in the film, used perfectly. All the sequences, the tunnel of love sequence near the beginning, and just, the tennis scenes and everything as well. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Perfect thriller, really. It's got some comedy moments in there as well. One of the most complex and engaging villains ever, in cinema, really, among them. It's kind of actually, the kind of dynamics are a bit similar to Psycho, you could say. And the villain is a little bit similar, actually, in the relation he has with his mother, relationship he has. Yeah, it's just a masterpiece for me, and I love the romance in it as well. I love all the side characters, and it's just constantly, shocking stuff, but also very, very funny at times as well. Often at the same time, simultaneously. Masterpiece for me. Yeah, Stranger on a Train. It's Hitchcock, and it's one of his best films for me. And Roger Ebert would make a quote on his review, that basically kind of summing up how good Hitchcock was and stuff. But Stranger on a Train, it's a masterpiece, but Roger Ebert thought that. But a lot of people, even then, they don't put the film, in Hitchcock's top 10 films. And basically saying how can how it's quite unbelievable how Hitchcock, a director, could have a film like Stranger on a Train, how good it really is, not in the top 10 films. And without spoiling too much, it's kind of on the line. Maybe if I see another film or two that kind of is a masterpiece, this could slip out the top 10, but it's it's a tier 2 masterpiece from me. So it says it all, really. Stranger on a Train. Thanks for watching my review.